One of the most iconic singers in the history of pop music is back, but after a career spanning 4 decades, does she still have anything new to offer listeners of today? My review of Madam X by the one and only Madonna is coming up next on Track by Track. Hey everybody, my name's Kyle and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your first time here, please take a second to click subscribe so that you won't miss future reviews and more. Having been a teenager during the 1980s, I can't help but have somewhat of an enduring affection for the music of Madonna. In 1983, her self-titled debut album was one of the 12 cassettes that I ordered for a penny when I joined the Columbia House Record Club for the first time. A year later, I was watching live when she performed Like a Virgin on the MTV Video Music Awards. I went on to see crappy movies like Vision Quest, Desperately Seeking Susan, and Who's That Girl, just because she was in them. And I even bought the soundtracks. As I got older and my musical tastes matured, I still enjoyed Madonna, but certainly abandoned my teenage infatuation with her hyper-sexualized persona. When Bedtime Stories came out in 1994, I was actually managing a record store and we had a midnight sale for the album release. That was probably the last Madonna album that I bought for over 10 years. I skipped her last 2 true hit albums, Ray of Light and Music, if only because I was working in pop radio by then and heard those songs all the time. As she transitioned into more of a dance artist, I started to think that maybe I was finally over Madonna. I don't know what exactly it was that brought me back to Madonna, but for whatever reason, I decided to give her album Hard Candy a try when it came out in 2008. Truth be told, it's not a great album, but what I did find was that it was a fun listen, and I enjoyed the energy. Up until then, I'd sort of written her off and thought that her music was no longer for me. Hard Candy made me rethink that position, and as a result, I went back and I picked up all the albums that I'd skipped. Now, I'd like to be able to say that I'd misjudged her all those years when I stopped paying attention. I don't think I did, though. In revisiting those 4 or 5 albums, what I found was that they sounded exactly the way that I thought they would. The difference was that I discovered that I enjoyed the music much more than I expected that I would. Now, none of it was album of the year material, but all of it was unquestionably expertly crafted. And in recent years, albums like Confessions on a Dance Floor, MDNA, and Rebel Heart are albums that I've played more often than her pre-2K hits because they make for great high-energy soundtracks for my morning runs. So there was no question in my mind that I'd be picking up her latest album, Madam X. Now, maybe I'm just not remembering clearly, but I don't recall Madonna giving her last few albums quite the multimedia push that we've seen for this latest release. That's especially true in social media. Madonna and her marketing team seem to be going all out to promote the new album and her mysterious and provocative new persona out on Instagram. She's even making the rounds on MTV, which I didn't even know that people did anymore. But I have to admit, the whole Madam X campaign also struck me as having a slight whiff of desperation. At age 60, she's trying really hard to be contemporary and relevant. On top of that, she's packed her new album with featured performers that are all young enough to be her grandchildren. All this definitely had me wondering if she could actually make it all work, or if we were in store for an embarrassing failure from a legendary artist. The album opens with Medellin, which is also the lead single for the album. Now, while this is far from being my favorite Madonna track ever, I have to admit that I like the vibe of the track. Madonna has a long history of borrowing Latin rhythms in her music, and she does that extensively on this new album. I do think it's a curious choice to open the album with a duet, though. As I said, there's a lot of featured artists on Madam X, and I wouldn't have expected Madonna to share the spotlight so soon in the song cycle. In any case, what Medellin does well is set the tone for the rest of the album. With its slower mid-tempo BPM and prominent melodies, this is our first hint that Madonna may be trying to return to her pop music roots rather than making another album of dance floor bangers. Dark Ballet continues that shift at track 2. The delicate piano intro here feels like something we haven't heard on a Madonna album in a long time. I was kind of excited by that. until all of a sudden the song takes a bizarre detour into Nutcracker land and it completely loses me. Her spoken word passage over cheesy synths playing the familiar Tchaikovsky ballet music is downright cringeworthy. I can absolutely see myself skipping this song almost every time I listen to this album in the future. Things get much better on the next couple tracks, though. On God Control, things get a little political lyrically, which I don't think tends to be Madonna's best lane, but when the music shifts into more of a disco/Daft Punk kind of mode, the infectious beat helps to carry the weight. Then on Future, I really like the electro-reggae vibe, and while the chorus is simple, I think it's actually pretty strong, one of the biggest earworms on the album. And again, I don't feel like Madonna has been in the strong hook business for a few years, so this is a welcome return. Now, part of the theme of this album is the idea of Madonna taking on multiple personas for the various songs. I think that idea becomes prominent on the next two songs, though to mixed results. I like the call and response approach to Batuka, but ultimately her vocal lacks any dynamics, and the song lacks a sense of melody. Then on the curiously titled Killers Who Are Partying, Madonna takes a stand for the oppressed, like all of them. The gays, the poor, the children, the Muslims, the Jews, Native Americans. It's all quite noble, I suppose, but lacks real focus. And like the previous track, there's not a lot of dynamics in the vocals, so it gets a little boring in spite of some of the exotic instrumentation and interesting production. But on Crave, we get a massive return to form for Madonna. We haven't heard her record this kind of pop song in years. It almost sounds like it could have been an outtake from her album Music almost 20 years ago. It's a solid track that also feels very contemporary, and I could totally have heard current Queen of Pop, Ariana Grande, recording it. I'd say the same thing for the next track, called Crazy. I'm not sure which Madam X persona we're getting on these two songs, but I'd love to hear a full album from her. There's definitely moments on this album where Madonna feels like she's trying too hard to be quote-unquote current, but here, for me, it feels very natural. Now, for the song Come Alive, I don't have a ton to say. It's kind of a filler track for me. I like it okay, but it's neither memorable nor offensive. And to make what may come across as an odd comparison for a Madonna song, it kind of has a Dave Matthews Band vibe to it with its African rhythm. Unfortunately, it doesn't take us on a particularly interesting journey. On the next track, I have to admit that I start to feel a bit exasperated. There's a lot of multilingual singing on this album, and on this song, which I'll probably mispronounce, Faz Gastoso, the English is scarce. Now, I don't mind occasional interludes into foreign languages, but at this point on Madam X, I'm kind of over it. The song has a fun and festive, almost Brazilian beat to it, but I have no idea what it's about. Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, from the English portions of the song, it's clearly about, sex. The rest of the song could be Madonna sharing her family recipe for vegetable lasagna, for all I know. Things continue in that mode on Bitch I'm Loca, which, for the record, is not a sequel to Bitch I'm Madonna from her previous album. It's yet another duet with Maluma, who we heard earlier on the opening track of Madam X. If anything, he kind of saves the song for me by adding an interesting texture to the track. Otherwise, once again, it verges on filler for me. On the final two songs, though, I think Madonna finishes strong, or at least familiar. The lush synth strings, electronic percussion, and even the finger snaps on I Don't Search, I Find definitely call to mind a Vogue-era Madonna. Melodically, the new song isn't nearly as strong, but that nostalgic throwback vibe will probably go a long way in making the track appeal to longtime Madonna fans. Then on I Rise, Madonna closes the album with another old-school sounding song that pays tribute to the victims and survivors of gun violence in America. Although the track opens with a sample of one of the Stoneman Douglas survivors speaking at a rally, the song still avoids being too heavy-handed about its subject matter. To that end, it neither offends nor inspires. I think that's probably a good thing, actually. I mean, for a song called I Rise, I don't think it does all that much to elevate social consciousness, but if I'm being honest, I don't think I believe Madonna can earnestly do that anyway. She plays it pretty safe here, and I think on that level, the song works. Now, I do want to mention that there are 2 additional songs included on the deluxe digital version and the Target exclusive CD version of Madam X. I can't say that either Extreme Occident or Looking for Mercy are standout tracks, and as bonus tracks, you kind of don't expect them to be. Still, both are solid songs that share a cinematic kind of quality. I like the interesting texture that they bring to the album, but I can also see how they may have been left off of the standard edition, if only because they seem a little out of place in the song cycle. It's easy to get past that, though, and after all, why would you listen to a non-deluxe version of the album anyway? If you're planning to pick up the CD, the Target edition is the one to get. So, I think it will be very interesting to see how this new album is received by the fans. It's definitely a departure from the wall-to-wall dance music that has dominated her albums for the past 15 or so years. And as a longtime listener, I certainly welcome her return to pop music on many of these new songs. And when I say pop music, I should also say that I think, more often than not, she seems to deftly balance the pop sensibilities that made her a star with the more contemporary sounds that define pop music today. At age 60, that kind of endeavor could have easily turned into an embarrassing train wreck for such a legacy artist. But that's not to say that this album is a runaway success. The multilingual aspects definitely get to be tedious, and the sonic mess of Dark Ballet nearly derails everything on just the second track. And while this is easily her most interesting and eclectic album in many, many years, it's not necessarily her most compelling or cohesive. I'm still unsure what kind of headspace a listener needs to be in to fully enjoy this song cycle, which really is all over the place. But I have to give Madonna credit here. She still has the power to surprise. So, even though I don't think that every track quite nails it here, they will definitely hold your interest. And I, for one, am actually looking forward to seeing where this trajectory will take her. So, I'm giving Madam X by Madonna an X rating of 6 out of 10. It's a solid musical statement from a pop icon and proof that 36 years into her career, she still has a lot to say. Once again, my name's Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Plus, check out some of these other videos below that I think you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.